Hey, what's going on, everybody? In today's video, I'm going to be giving my top 10 wide receivers for the 2023 NFL season. Now, this is my preseason rankings. These aren't how I think everybody's going to end up. So, let's get right into this video. But first, I have to mention my honorable mentions. So my honorable mentions are going to be Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Devontae Smith, and Amari Cooper. These are guys that are the top of the league, but I have them slightly all missing out on the top 10. So at 10, I'm going to have Terry McLaurin. Now, this might be a shock to some people, but Terry McLaurin is arguably the most underrated wide receiver in the league. Now, Terry McLaurin, I think, deserves all the respect. He's been given nothing but a terrible situation after terrible situation, yet he thrives in every single one. Even out of college, he wasn't meant to be the number one option on an offense. He was a third-round pick out of Ohio State who primarily played the slot. Yet as a supposed slot guy who's 5'11 and is a speed guy, he's consistently top 10 in the contested catch rates. He had arguably his best statistical season last year, having 1,100 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. He was top 10 in yards per catch and top 10 in yards. And mind you, this was with Carson Wentz and Taylor Heinicke. And then at the end of the season, Sam Howell. Now, Eric Bieniemy stepping in there as the offensive coordinator for Washington should be a really big step up for Terry McLaurin. He's likely going to be schemed open a lot better. We'll have to see how Sam Howell performs next year, but I think that Terry McLaurin is a top 10 receiver in the league. I think Terry McLaurin deserves all the respect and have him top 10 on my list. At number 9, I'm going to have Jaylen Waddle, one of the premier deep threats in the league. Jaylen Waddle has had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons with the Dolphins. He finished number 1 in yards per catch with 18.1. He also finished 7th in receiving yards with over 1,300 and added 8 receiving touchdowns. And he had those statistics with Tyreek Hill, who was a top 3 receiver in the league and who definitely demanded a ton of target share. And Tua Tagovailoa spent some time on the injury list, and Waddle caught from 3 different quarterbacks. Waddle is not only one of the fastest receivers in the league, but he's also a very good route runner, and he's great in the red zone. But Jaylen Waddle is a top 3 receiver after the catch, as you can see on this play. He's just going to run after the catch for a quick 70-yard touchdown. So I'm going to have Jaylen Waddle coming in at 9th on my list. I'm going to have Ceedee Lamb coming in at 8. He had his breakout year last year. After Amari Cooper was traded last offseason, Ceedee Lamb was able to become the number 1 receiver on the Cowboys system. He finished top 5 in receptions and also finished 6th in receiving yards, to go along with having 9 receiving touchdowns. Now, Ceedee Lamb is a premier route runner. He's always been a great route runner, even coming out of Oklahoma. He's got very quick feet, which allows him to easily separate from wide receivers. But the one thing that Ceedee Lamb did that really shocked me was he improved his contested catches a lot. He's not the biggest guy. He's not really an X-body receiver yet. He was grabbing some really difficult catches. However, he is losing his offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, and the Cowboys also traded for Brandon Cooks, who will take away some of his targets. But Ceedee Lamb is still the clear number 1 receiver in that room, and I'm going to have him at 8 on this list. At number 7, I'm going to have Cooper Kupp. Now, I think people forget his historic Triple Crown winning season last year. This year, he didn't have the gaudiest numbers after his season ended a little early. In 9 full games last year, he did put up almost 100 yards per game, finishing with 800 yards and 6 receiving touchdowns. But Cooper Kupp is still a premier route runner in the league. But sadly, I don't think that Cooper Kupp is going to put up the numbers that he has in the last couple of years. The Rams are in a clear rebuild, and I don't think Matthew Stafford's career is going to last too much longer. He's gotten a lot of injuries. So the quarterback position is a big question mark for the Rams. But Cooper Kupp is still that consistent guy, and I think if he plays a full season, he'll still get over 1,000 yards. But even though we're not forgetting the 2021 season, he's still not as game-changing as some of these other receivers on the list. At number 6, I'm going to have Ja'Marr Chase. And Ja'Marr Chase is another guy who went out with an ankle injury, and he missed 4 games this year. However, regardless, he still put up over 1,000 yards this year. Despite missing a lot of time, he still finished 14th in total receptions and had 9 touchdowns on the year. Now, Ja'Marr Chase is still a premier deep threat and is one of the best wide receiver quarterback duos with Joe Burrow, who is a top 3 quarterback. Now, Ja'Marr Chase is a very good receiver. He's a great route runner. He's a phenomenal deep threat with that speed. However, the receivers above him have just one thing that he really doesn't, and that's the fact that they change the offenses that they're a part of. Now, I think Ja'Marr Chase changed incredibly the offense that they had last year, but this year they didn't skip a beat as much as I would have thought with his absence with the ankle injury. But regardless, Ja'Marr Chase, I think, still is a top 5 talent and will be on the top 5 later in his career. But as of this year, I'm going to have him 6th on my list. I have A.J. Brown coming in at 5 on my list, and A.J. Brown completely changed the Eagles' passing game this season. He was traded from the Tennessee Titans last offseason for a first-round pick, and A.J. Brown was completely worth that. He had his best statistical season, as well as being a big reason why Jalen Hurts progressed as a passer this year. He finished 4th in receiving yards with almost 1,500, had 11 receiving touchdowns, and finished 4th in yards per catch. Now, he's an ex-built receiver, and he's a contested catch monster. Now, he flashed that ability heavily with the Titans, but Ryan Tannehill didn't test him as much as he should have because of Derrick Henry and the run game scheme. But Philadelphia also heavily attacked the run game, but it didn't matter because A.J. Brown was too much of a threat in the passing game to leave him out of the offense. And A.J. Brown basically never dropped the ball either, so I'm going to have him top 5 on my list. At number 4, I'm going to have Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs has consistently been a top 5 receiver for the Buffalo Bills, and last year was no different with him finishing 4th in receptions and 5th in receiving yards, to go along with 11 receiving touchdowns. At one point, he was even leading the league in receiving yards before Tyreek Hill and then eventually Justin Jefferson overtook him. But he is consistently the only option that Josh Allen really has other than maybe Dawson Knox. And it might be a little detriment to Stefon Diggs because he consistently is bracketed and double covered. And Josh Allen does sometimes force the ball too much to Stefon Diggs. But it's really all worth it because Stefon Diggs is one of the most reliable receivers in the league. And he's consistently open because he's a phenomenal route runner. He has great hands. And he's a great deep threat, so you can just bomb the ball to him on go routes. He's a guy who has a very sophisticated route tree and a very dynamic route tree. He's not limited at all. But I do think the numbers one of these days will slip a lot. You saw later in the season, a lot of defenses were bracketing him. And, the Jets were even able to shut him down in both of the games that they faced him. And for the Buffalo Bills offense specifically, if you're able to shut down Stefon Diggs, you're kind of able to shut down their whole offense. Due to that reason, I have Stefon Diggs at 4. I'm going to have Davante Adams at 3. This is a pretty easy selection. I had him number 1 last year. He was traded to the Las Vegas Raiders over the offseason, joining Derek Carr, his former college teammate. Now, it didn't necessarily work out totally for the Raiders. They ended up finishing 6-11 and didn't have a great season at all. However, the offense didn't take a step beat and improved a lot with Davante Adams' addition. And Adams himself had a very good season as well. He had 100 receptions, finished 3rd in receiving yards with 1,500, and finished number 1 in receiving touchdowns. With Hunter Renfrow having a down year and Darren Waller not being really available, Davante Adams was the biggest threat on the offense outside of Josh Jacobs. And Derek Carr routinely targeted him. Adams finished top 3 in targets, and he was well worth a ton of them. Davante Adams also had multiple game-winning touchdowns, like against the Denver Broncos, and showed why he's still a premier receiver in the league. However, this year he is getting a quarterback change in Jimmy Garoppolo, Derek Carr going to the Saints after being released, and he'll still be a main focus of the offense. I'm going to have him at 3. I'm going to have Tyreek Hill coming in at number 2 on my list. Tyreek Hill joined a primed Miami Dolphins team last offseason with Mike McDaniel, Jaylen Waddle, and Tua Tagovailoa. And many believe that Tyreek Hill was going to have a down year this year because Tua Tagovailoa wasn't going to be able to reach him on go routes or post routes due to his arm. But I don't think it really mattered. I mean, sometimes Tyreek Hill was underthrown by Tua, but he still had a ton of receptions. I mean, he finished 2nd in receptions and 2nd in receiving yards with over 1,700 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns to go along with it. Now, Tyreek Hill was extremely crucial in Tua Tagovailoa's season last year. Tyreek Hill can line up at any receiver point and be effective, and the defenses are going to have to adjust to him. I attribute Tyreek Hill to why teams are running a lot of cover 2 and a lot of cover 4s. But for a team like the Miami Dolphins, it's extremely hard to guard both Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. And I think that Tyreek Hill and Mike McDaniel are both the 2 biggest reasons why the Dolphins had a lot of success on offense last year. But I think there is one receiver who has a bigger impact. And that, of course, is the Offensive Player of the Year, Justin Jefferson. He led the league in receiving yards. He led the league in receptions. He had 8 receiving touchdowns, and he was the best wide receiver last year. Justin Jefferson had the biggest offensive impact for a team outside of the quarterback position. He put up the most wins above replacement for a non-quarterback position. He also, I think, was the biggest reason why the Minnesota Vikings offense played so well last year, and why they didn't get accused of being frauds more often, and why they won the division. And that's a huge reason why Justin Jefferson was the Offensive Player of the Year last year. And he made the best catch of the year right there against the Buffalo Bills. Now, Justin Jefferson is also an elite route runner and an elite deep throw threat. He has very good hands and can go up and get catches like that. Now, the only real knock to Justin Jefferson is that he's not a real game-changing receiver like guys like Tyreek Hill, Stefon Diggs, or Davante Adams. But I think after last year, Justin Jefferson has firmly put his name as a game-changing receiver. We saw in games like against the Patriots and against the Bills, Justin Jefferson is able to take the game into his hands and firmly win a game based on himself solely. And that's the pure reason why I have him as the best receiver in the league. So that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know your rankings for the top 10 wide receivers. Let me know how you thought I did in my rankings. Make sure you follow along the rest of the series. I'm going to be doing a top 10 for every single position in the NFL. And I'll see you in the next one.